So the next instalment of fettling the Mini Cooper RSP is going to be having a look at the steering, tracking and geometry. So when I took the Mini out for a test drive, it was pulling quite heavily to the driver's side, to the offside, towards the centre of the road. Now previously I have done some work on the steering rack, replacing the gaiters and the track rod ends, and when I replaced those track rod ends I counted the numbers of turns off to get the tie rod ball joint off the end of the steering rack, and counted the same number of turns on. So basically all I did was put back exactly what was there previously. Obviously, never having driven the car, I didn't know whether that was right or wrong, but I did note at the time that the track rod ends, from rotating the ball joint on the end, was 12 full turns on one side and 8 on the other. Now I didn't know whether that was correct or not, or whether they should be both equal. All I did was replace what was there when I took the original items off. So to that end, having test driven the car and seeing that it's pulling quite heavily to the offside, what I'm going to attempt to do now is just have a beginner's rough guide and a stab at just checking the alignment of the wheels, see what they are currently. I understand the Minis as a base setting should have 1 millimetre of toe in on the front wheels, so that's what I'm aiming to check what we've got and adjust to bring it into that baseline. So let's see what it looks like. Right, so to do the job I've got some fishing line which I'm going to use instead of string, and my thinking of using fishing line is that I can get a more accurate measurement rather than trying to measure whereabouts a piece of thick string is. So I'd rather use something a bit more defined, so I'm going to use some fishing line. 4 axle stands, so we'll put one on each 4 corners around the car, and then some old cardboard. And I'm just going to push the car forward now onto that, making sure that the steering is centred. Okay, so we've got driver's side wheel sitting nicely on there, and then the passenger side like so. So we've made sure that the steering wheel is nice and straight, pointing straight forward, and the spokes level, all the on the horizontal. Right, let's set up the string now. Okay, so we've got wire, fishing line connecting those together, and same on the other side. So now we're just going to set the rears to get that line parallel with the back tyre, or the back rim. That's my understanding, so I'll have a go at that. Okay, so after much fiddling, what I've done now is I've got the measurement between the rim and the line, 68 millimeters, and then 68 millimeters on that one, so that I know that string is now parallel to the plane of that tyre. So now we'll have a look at the front and see what that looks like. So at the front we've got a reading of 25 mil on that edge and 31 on that edge. Right, so what I've done now to try and get them all parallel, measuring from this back edge, I'm not measuring from the centre cap because I've got a centre cap missing on the other side, so I'm going to measure a datum from this back edge of the centre of the wheel hub, and that's 50mm. So I've set that 50mm measurement all the way around the car. So that is 50mm from that same point on every wheel. Measuring from the centre, we've got our 50mm, but when I measure from the back edge of the wheel, that's 47.5, and from the front edge it's 55mm. So there's 7 centimetre discrepancy. So does that mean that the rear wheel is like that, or does it mean that my line is like that, even though when I measure from the centre of the front wheel it's the same? So I tend to think that actually I can't set the parallel fishing line using that method of getting those the same measurements, because it brings it in too close at the front, because in effect I think this wheel is cambered in a touch. I don't know whether that should be or not, or whether it's just my incompetence of trying this this task. So front offside, which is the driver's side, so we've got that 50mm measurement. If we then have a look at this one, so the inside rim edge measures 45, and the forwardmost rim measures 59. So I'll just check that again. 45, 59. So the fronts, so after having 50mm centres, the centres at 50, this front edge was 45, and then the front, the forward edge there was 59. So that equals a 14mm towing. Right, so look at the other side. So this is the front passenger side. So again, we'll just check our centre is at 50mm, which it is. So the inner side rim edge is again 45, and then the frontmost edge of the rim is 60mm. "45, 50, 60. So massive towing again. So again, the centre was set to 50, 45, 60. So you've got a 15mm towing on the passenger near side. So 14mm towing, way too much. 15mm, way too much. And I still don't understand why we've still got a few mil towing on this side. Let me just check this rear passenger side. So this is the rear passenger. So our starting centre is 50, 48, 54. So passenger rear 48, 54. So we've got a 6mm toe in on the rear. So everything's toeing in. Let's just get the measurement for this one, then we've got completeness. $50mm centre, so towards the rear of the car 48, and towards the in of the car we've got 55. So I'm confounded. 7mm toe in. So does that mean actually that I'm doing this wrong and that actually my lines are like that, but when I try and set the lines such that those values on the rim of the tyre are the same, it puts the line massively inside, which then kind of makes that I can't take a measurement off the front, because if you set the parallel from the orientation of that rear wheel, it sends the line in far too much. So I'm at a loss. Right, there's a little voice in my head saying take it to the garage, take it to the garage, but I want to try and give this a go. Either way, I think there's still a job to do in terms of lessening, reducing the toe-in of the fronts. There's nothing I can do about the rears if that's to do with bushes potentially in the radius arms, which might be a job for the future. So I think now what I'm going to do is just reduce the amount of massive toe-in on the fronts, which will mean undoing the locking nuts on the track rod ends and winding them out so that it pushes the steering arm out, which brings that front wheel more parallel. Right, this is really confusing me. What I just thought I'd do is just put spirit level on that back wheel and just look where the line is there. I'm just stepping back. That rear wheel definitely is towing in. See what it looks like on this side. And if I, kind of difficult to see it really, but again, look where the line is on that level. It's off the spirit level there. So I'm not sure whether that's saying that the wheels toe in or I've not got the lines parallel and that they need to be brought in at the front, but then that reduces that the 50mm centres massively. So no, I don't know. More thinking time. Right, so a couple of days later and a little bit of YouTube research, and I think I have a cunning plan. And that cunning plan being to get 2 lengths of wood and then cut 2 lines into those wood, just a thin line with a hacksaw, just enough for the fishing line to sit inside, so that I know I can put 1 plank at the rear of the car, 1 at the front, and I know that the lines are the same distance apart. So that should make setting the lines down the length of the car easier to get parallel. That's my thinking. Okay, so tape measure on the rear wheel, just sticking out a couple of inch, and if we stick out a couple of inch this side, 57 inch. Okay, so we've got one line, two line, and with a hacksaw now I'll just make a very, very shallow cut in there, just enough for the fishing line to sit in. There we go, just sawn in. Okay, so what we've got now is the planks front and back, and we've got them measuring from the centre of the wheel the same distance from the lines to the centre of the wheel, so that I know that that is centred, measuring the centres of the wheels in terms of the lines across. So if we measure the back, .46mm, 47mm, so that's slightly toe in. .46mm, about 50mm, so that's toe out 4mm. So that's just at the rear. Now let's just check the front. So measuring from the centre, just to make sure they're both equidistant, we've got 24mm, and 21, so we just need to just bring this front bar just a couple of mil across. Remeasure again. Got 23mm from the centre cap. .23mm that side. It's okay, right. So we know that the lines are parallel. Now, driver's side. So if we measure rim to the line, we've got 16mm, and then rim to the line we've got 22. So that is toe out 6mm. Let's have a look at what's happening on the other side. And this one we've got 19mm and 26mm. So we've got 7mm toe in. So that then clearly explains why the steering's all over the place. And in fact, just kind of looking down the side shot of the Mini, you can just see how that wheel's tracking inwards. Right, so I've jacked the car up, starting at the driver's side. Switch the wheel off. Okay, so working underneath the car now, we're going to release the lock nut from the track rod end and release the track rod end from the steering arm. get the mole grips, the vice grips on one side. Right, so if we've got round about 9mm of additional towing, the pitch of the track rod end, or the thread on the steering rack, is about 1mm. So if I screw that in 5 turns, that should pull in the steering arm and reduce the towing effect. So we're pushing the front out half of that, because as we reduce 1mm on one side, it goes out on the other. So half of 9, 4.5, roughly 1mm pitch. So let's turn it 5 times and see where that gets us. Okay, so we need to break the taper off the steering arm. Okay, let's get the splitter on it. Okay, let's get the ball joint splitter on it. There we go, now it's broke loose. Get the rest off. Okay. Right, so we've got the grips on the steering rack, and now we'll screw in 5 turns, pointing upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 turns. Okay, flip get the lock back up. Okay, and let's put that back into the steering arm. And replace the nut. Okay, so I've checked all the strings again now, so that I know everything's parallel. The strings are equal on both sides. So after that adjustment, let's have a see what we've got now. So we've got 24mm on that side and 20mm. Okay, second time around. Okay. Okay. Vice grips, mole grips in place. And 1, 2. Back in. And let's go again. Right, so still doing the okey cokey, wheel off, twiddle of the track rod end, wheel back on, quick measure up, getting there or thereabouts. So I'm now onto the near side, on the passenger side, which when we started was 8mm out. So I'm just going to do 4 turns, which it should be half of that distance at roughly 1mm of pitch, and we'll see where we are. So we'll adjust this one, the near side, everything back together, and let's have another measure up after that. Okay, so we've split the track rod end off the steering arm, undone the lock nut, and we were massively toe in on this side. So to push the toe out a little bit, we need to wind that in, so that pulls on the steering arm inwards, and that then pushes the toe out. So we have 4 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, centre the steering wheel, making sure that that's centred. And I'm not sure, I think the professionals kind of clamp that wheel in place, but I've got nothing to clamp that with, so I'll just have to keep guessing, I suppose. Oh, the other thing as well is extremely difficult trying to get underneath the car to adjust the track rod ends with it planted on the floor. So I removed the cardboard that was underneath the front wheels. Just wasn't practical. So for this purposes, what I'm doing is jacking the car up, making the adjustment, and then dropping it back down and re-measuring everything. A bit long-winded, but that's the way I'm doing it. I just couldn't manage underneath the car keeping the wheels on the floor and adjusted it while it was still planted on the floor. So that's the way that I've found is the way that I've had to do it. Right, so we've recentered all the distances. So rears and the fronts, that's both the same value, so we know that the lines are parallel. Right, let's have another go. Where are we this time? 20 mil. 21, possibly 21.5. So that's 1.5 mil toe in. Happy with that. Let's have a look at the other side. Right. See what we've got on the passenger side. 22. 22, so that seems to be just measuring that again, that's possibly 23, 22. So we're 1 mil toe out on this side. So from 1 mil toe out to 1 mil toe in, I'm probably just going to give this another half a turn out, and then hopefully we should be there. Right, off we go again. So driver's side, near side, 21.5. This side, 22.5. So 1 mil toe in, thereabouts. Right, driver's side, and we have 21.5. 22. So we've got half a millimetre toe in. So given that I am probably only doing this roughly in the ballpark, I think 1 mil and half a mil. I think probably if I reset those wires, the ropes, and measured it again, I'd probably get a different reading anyway. So I think for me, on my very, very rough and ready DIY tracking, I think I'm within a mil or two, which, given where we were starting from, where there was a very, very obvious massive toe ins on both sides, I think that's a great improvement. So the proof will be when it gets out on the road, but we're not out on the road just yet, because we still need to be doing a few more jobs to get the Mini running right. But for now, I think the tracking looks right, but the proof will be on the pudding when we get it driving for real. but I think we're in a good ballpark to start off with. So another job finished, or so I think. A really tricky job that. YouTube research makes it look really simple. Again, in reality, when I seem to be doing these jobs, it's never as straightforward. Certainly setting the initial lines parallel and equidistant so that you're measuring from the same point is really fiddly. And of course, because I've got to move tyres off to undo the track rod ends, you've got to reset them every single time. And doing that within 1 millimetre constantly, I'm not convinced that I'm millimetre accurate by any stretch of the imagination. But what I think I am is good enough, certainly, to stop the severe drag and pull to the centre of the road, to the offside, when I did the initial test drive. The car's still not running right, so I can't get it out for another test drive just yet. I've got some more work to do on the tuning to get the car running right, and then I can really test drive it. And I suppose, the Mini's still on the original rubber. Those tyres, over 20 years old at best. Will be having new tyres all round, and probably at that point I'll see if I can't cut a deal for 4 new tyres and tracking thrown in for a freebie, touch wood, and then I know that it's set up properly. But it's close, it's good enough for me. Fettling on the driveway, I'm not a professional, I'm there or thereabouts, so happy with where we're up to. So a little bit more work to do on the Mini, and close to getting it on the road. So